One second, and we should be going live. We are live now. So good
Yay.
evening, everyone.
Welcome. Well, I guess this is our first one of
Happy
2023.
Happy New Year. Yeah, happy 2023. Yeah, it's the first one. So today we're gonna have a good friend of us, Andy. So we're gonna start as always. We're gonna play the show reel and then we do a proper introduction to him and get the conversation start. So give me one moment to share screen. It's been a while we don't do that. I don't even know our share screens anymore.
Where am I?
Cool. Give me one moment. Share screen. Hold you. That one.
I like it's building anticipation.
So can you guys see that?
Yep.
There we go.
Oh, hey guys. Sorry about that. Sorry about that too.
Nice.
Very nice.
Really nice one, man.
Thanks. I broke my rule of keeping a reel under a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Nearly 2 minutes.
I did zone out, I have to admit.
Yeah, I know. That
About the minute and a half mark.
Yeah. Everybody does.
But the good thing is you don't really feel that long, you know. I think the problem is when the show reel get really long and they just
when
dragging.
it's terrible work and then it lasts for ages. That's like, oh.
Yeah.
But it's all right in this case.
Sure.
But you did the audio as well, right?
Yeah. That's it's a song I did ages ago, and I just took the vocals off it. But yeah, sort of a happy electronic stuff. Quite like to do the audio for it because then you don't really have to worry about rights and stuff. And you know, one day somebody will sign me up for a 10 album record deal, and that's how I'll be coming.
They're probably watching this stream right now.
This is why I'm here. Before we started, I said I didn't have an agenda. This is the agenda.
It's kind of nice when you do like all of the work there, you know, obviously the visual but also the audio is quite a nice and kind of quite a rare thing really to have all encompassing. It's quite cool.
Yeah, well, it's fun to do. I think with like a lot of the shorts and stuff as well, I do all the audio. I do a lot of the voices as well, which is why I put some of the voices in there. Also, I put there's two things to kind of trick people into thinking I'm good. One is someone goes, wow, in it, which I'm hoping elicits a response. And another one is a dial that goes from poor to excellent, which is just like, people just think of that when they're watching my work, then that'll help.
Yeah, I think it's
and that's also like looking at show reel is really nice mix of work. You know, you go, it's quite character driven, but in the same time it's a really different styles. You know, I remember how long ago you start doing this stop motion, the little characters. I remember when you start, and they got quite big now, no?
Yeah, well, I've been doing it for a while. I think when I did my talk with you guys at one of your London events, that was 2014 or 15, something like that.
Wow, it's so old now.
And I know. And I was working on a film which was all like stop motion with 2D stuff.
Yeah.
Called Mr. Director. So that was like the first like big thing I did with that. And then a lot of the commercial stuff has been mainly 2D work. So that took over for a few years. But I think it was just either just at the start or just before the global pandemic. I started making the little loops again of it, because I bought that desk behind me is an IKEA standing desk that I can adjust.
All right, that's nice. Yeah,
so I do all my plasticine stuff there, and it's just quite a nice little area that I can put a sheet of paper and do something quite small scale, but like big enough to do something fun, like little loops and things for like Instagram and wherever you put those things these days.
Because you also went to, I think you went to Pictoplasma Talk, no? With
Yeah,
correct?
Yeah, that was the same year. Like that was my peak. It was like 10 years ago is when I peaked, and I'm waiting for my resurgence. But yeah, because I just finished the planets, and then I did like a few talks the year afterwards, because I think I'd done quite a lot of stuff online, so it built up a little bit of momentum.
Apparently we have like a creative resurgence when we're around about 50, so not too far off.
Not too far. Sadly. Yeah, 6 years, that's all right. I've got 6 years.
Well, you're getting there. How long you been in the industry?
Well, 2001 was when I graduated, so since then. I went straight out of college. I worked for 4 years at a company that doesn't exist anymore called Addiction, and then from then I was freelance until I joined with Passion. I still do freelance, but it's like a lot of work with Passion as well.
So what was like jumping from Addiction to freelance, what was kind of like the biggest eye-opener or the biggest change for you?
It was relatively an easy transition, mainly because one, Addiction still employed me for freelance for like a few months. I did quite a soft move into freelance.
Soft launch.
Exactly. Also, some people who were producers and new business people had left and started companies, and like they were friends of mine. So the little group was quite a nice network that I had to get into things. So I worked at a company called Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember them.
Are they closer now, no?
Well, they were bought by who was it? David Hicks used to work freelance for him for a while. It's going to annoy me now.
I don't know. A while ago.
It was a long. They were based behind the McDonald's in Shoreditch.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to really annoy me. I'm going to fall asleep and I'm going to wake up at about 3 a.m. and go, oh yeah, that was it.
You can post on the comments, the YouTube tomorrow.
Yeah. Anyway, they were bought out down the line.
No, okay.
And then a couple of those people set up Fred and Eric, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So I think that was Maggie and Jamie and Sarah who set up Fred and Eric. Because I did a little bit of work with them as well.
So you pretty much start kind of work, like after uni, you start working full time, move to freelance, and now kind of you have your own thing, no?
Yeah.
How do you feel? I think because nowadays we see so many people going to freelance straight away. I think people in our time, we used to always work full time, get the knowledge, get to know how to work things. But nowadays seems like people does courses and just go straight to freelance. It just feels quite. We hire quite
skipping a step.
Quite few people, they don't really know like how to manage day to day to work. I think. How do you feel? Because do you feel it's a gradient? Like going full time and that goes get experience freelance after, and that normally people tend to start their own thing.
I mean, I can only go from like, I guess my experience. The thing that I got from doing a full-time job was I got up to speed with how fast I needed to work, especially with the kind of thing that we were doing. We were doing music commercials when they were prevalent, and it was, you got a a script in, which was like pretty bare bones, and artwork and a video. And so you had to do a storyboard in like a day, and then make the thing in 3 or 4 days, and then it was out in the world. And so the thing that I learned was how to quickly get everything I needed together and get it into some kind of form that would work. Which was really invaluable. And also, when I joined, it was quite a small company, so I got opportunities to do bigger projects that I think as a junior I wouldn't have done if it was more of a structured, larger company. I think as far as like going straight into freelance, the world, it's like slightly different in things are more remote generally, so you can find out how to do things without being next to people who are more experienced, because that was the big thing that I got. Was I had 2 people who were much more senior than me, and one of them was a really good creative storyboarder, could come up with design aesthetics really quickly and put stuff together, and the other one was super technical and was really into 3D, but like really knew After Effects. And I got a wealth of knowledge from both of them just by sitting in the room every day with them, that I don't think you would get if you're jumping about different companies.
Different companies, yeah.
The thing I like on freelance was proving yourself all the time, like going into
I feel the same, but also I think, like you talking is, I think it helps quite a lot the full time having the creative around. Like you said, nowadays you can find a lot of things to learn, when we're talking more technical wise or creative wise. But I think when we see down how studios work, how you pitch and things like that, I think when you just freelance, you just need to guess that kind of things. No one really share much.
Yeah, when you're full time, you're like, teach me, and when you're freelance, it's I'm not lying.
Well, it's easier to ask silly questions when you're full time, because you're already on staff and they're not going to fire you for trying to find out something. Whereas
there's no such thing as a silly question. That's the mantra, isn't it? There's no such thing as a silly question.
Yeah, unless you're pretending to be really experienced and then you ask something.
Unless you're freelance charging X amount per day.
Exactly. Then you can get into a sticky situation.
It's true. And you also you still work with a Strange Beast as well, because you work as a creative director, or was creative director then, no?
So I was initially signed with Strange Beast as one of their animation directors, and they're in the same building, they're sister companies with Passion, and I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, actually probably longer now, that I moved over to the Passion roster, mainly just for the type of projects that I was doing was getting to be larger scale, so the structure that Passion had was working for that kind of work. But I still speak with all the Strange Beast guys quite a lot, and I've done creative direction projects with them for a couple of ones where they've got a number of their directors, some of the newer ones, and for projects where they're doing one film or an illustration as part of a bigger thing, and then I'll just sort of oversee the thing, speak to client, and be the middleman between them and the directors, and present the work and get the feedback and all of that sort of stuff, and just have an eye over the whole thing.
With Strange Beast, what was the differentiating factor? Because it used to be a bit more experimental. Is that still the case? It's a bit more experimental, and then if it's a bit more kind of like you say, like a larger project, then it will go through Passion instead.
Well, I mean, they get larger projects, and I think the difference is it's nuanced, but they have directors with particular styles, and I think their styles can be like pushed a bit further than, I think with Passion, it's generally more established directors, and there's a focus on storytelling with the kind of work that they do. they're quite famous for their big 3D Pixar looking emotional stories,
And meerkats.
and a lot of meerkats,
Yeah.
which we love. And I think with the Strange Beast directors, it's a bit like an illustration roster where they've got particular aesthetics, and a lot of playful work, which is why my stuff fitted in really nicely there. But I think it was just the type of projects that I was trying to get, and we found was more suited to being on the Passion roster.
To be on the Passion, yeah. It's can I, because we've been trying to help, like I think these last, let's say, 2 years of COVID, we had like a massive gap on the industry with like students in general, because everyone lost. We're talking, you start working as an internship, and now you're quite established director. Like I can see a lot like people come from uni now, trying to get into the industry, trying to build their career as a director. As you have a good bag with you, with knowledge of that, is anything you'd recommend to the young kids now than trying to get in the industry, to trying to pursue the career as a director?
I think as a director, I mean, it's for me, it's always been about the work and just making work that pushes you in a direction where you want to go. And I've never stopped doing that. And I think that always helps, and that catches people's eye. So whether that's doing a short film or like loops for Instagram or, whatever it might be, and wherever you might put it, as long as it represents the kind of thing that you want to make. With my stuff, it was always like playful, funny, musical things, and that's whether that was 2D or stop motion. That was the tone that I wanted, and just to have that kind of tone and a voice in your own work, I think people latch on to that. And as a director, that's what you want to see, is somebody who you can look at their body of work and go, oh, I get a sense of what they're trying to do. So yeah, it's just making good work. I think a short film is always a good thing to do. I mean, music videos were a thing years and years ago, but just that amount of time on something is a good showcase for what you can do. And then it's just approaching people. I mean, when I got signed, I'd just done a freelance project that was a bigger project than I would normally be doing. It was for E4 Music, and it was a series of 30 idents that were a mix of little models that looked like plasticine, that were a barbershop quartet and sang electronic sounds. But it was like a little step up from what I've been doing before. So I took that one project, I was like, this is a good showcase of what I can do. And I sent it to the various companies who I really liked their directors' work, and I thought I fitted in with them. And that's how I got involved with Strange Beast, through sending it to them. And it started that relationship. I know with Passion, they have a greenhouse roster, which is up and coming young artists.
All right.
They showcase and like nurture, and then some of those will feed through into the either Strange Beast or Passion roster, and it's a good way of, like a stepping stone onto being a director. So, and I'm sure other companies have similar things where they, try out younger. I mean, everybody wants the next new thing.
Yeah,
guys like me are old hat, so they want the new kids to come. So if
we
you
put off to the pasture.
Yeah, exactly. So sent up north to disappear. So you can do something and get it in front of people. That's really the main thing.
Yeah, I think it's one big thing we see on your showreel. It's kind of at least on your Instagram as well. You're always trying to push a lot of your personal work. I think It's quite important to establish as a director to show the direction you want, as a director, and it's something we always talk about. How the personal work helps. Not just to study to show the style you want to do. What you're trying to show as a director, as a language.
Yeah, I think so. It's sort of an obsession with me. It's just making stuff. Like, that's why I have this. I'm in the garden just outside my house, is like there, and I'm out here, which is, I have 2 little children as well. So when I'm in here, it's a really nice area. I mean, this is a classic midlife crisis room.
It is.
Full of all my things.
That's Daddy's playroom.
It is. My son was in here yesterday, so I set him up a little desk with his little chair and his tablet, and he was just like tapping away as I'm here on my desk, pretty much doing the same thing. I thought, I haven't really evolved since I was 4. But being in here means I can do the work that I get paid for, and then literally any downtime, I've got everything around me that I need to get on with other stuff, which is a real luxury, but it's something that I've built through like the past 15 years. I've been working towards getting more and more remote, which is, so everybody's doing that now, but that was a choice before pandemic started. Just so I can make my own things. When you're in an office, it's very hard to work on your own stuff, because you just feel really self-conscious if you're not doing the work that you've been assigned. But if you've finished what you're doing and you just sat about, I was sort of wasting time sat in offices pretending to do stuff when they couldn't give me any more work to do.
There's only so many times you can maximize and minimize a spreadsheet.
Exactly.
And how do you manage? Because you just said you have 2 kids, working from home and manage. Do you have, like, when you're inside this room?
I neglect them constantly, and that's how I do it.
Just outside Andy's studio, he's got these spikes that he lifts out from the floor so they can't go near.
Yeah, just keep them out. I don't know. There's obviously less time. I don't work weekends anymore because that's full family time. Both my kids are at school, so that helps. So there's every day of the week they're there until 3 o'clock, and my wife looks after them with me. So it's like we share that responsibility. I mean, finding time is always tricky.
Yeah,
but I sort of managed to do it somehow.
Going back to your workroom container.
Yep.
So was that one of the main drives to have the space to move outside of London, to move up north? Well,
I mean, ironically, our garden here is smaller than the one that we had in London. My wife's a jewelry designer, and she works with quite big machines, or she did when she was doing the process that she used to do. So she had a room like this in our old house. It was bigger, actually. It had 2 rooms. I was quite jealous, but I was in the house, which was quite nice. But yeah, no, we moved up here for bringing up kids, really. Like, we wanted to be near a family. I'm from Sheffield originally, and my wife's Scottish, so we're in North Yorkshire now, which is in the middle of
way.
Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't really a work decision. Actually, moving up there, it was making sure that we could do it, and I could still work, and Sarah could still do what she did outside of London. There was more of a worry than anything.
Especially pre-pandemic, when everyone was kind of working remotely. Are you sure you're not going to stay in bed?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I had established that I work remotely anyway. So even when I was in London, I was going to the office once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And it was a nice balance for me. And I did more at home than I did in the office, because as soon as I'm in the office, I just want to speak to people and have nice chats and go for lunch and do all the things that I don't do at home. So I get nothing done and then come home and carry on with the nitty-gritty of getting bits made.
Have you found that like moving outside of London, has it kind of changed or had an influence in your like creative approach? Because obviously I always find like surroundings kind of influence your creative in some, either subconsciously or consciously. So I'm wondering if you found it's had a bearing on the stuff you make.
I don't know. I guess it must have. Definitely not consciously. It is nice to be able to walk out and be in countryside and in the woods a lot easier. And things are a lot calmer and a more sedate. I mean, it's not a sleepy town or life I'm leading, but it isn't. Going into central London was always really fun and exciting and busy. And I guess that had influence on my work. I don't think consciously it has. I don't think my work is very autobiographical. So it's I'm always trying to find like jokes and silly things or like musical things to do. And I don't think it's massively influenced by my surroundings. I don't know. I haven't thought about it much really, James.
I don't know. You could, I think the sense of humor and kind of varies slightly depending which part in the UK you are. Like I feel like the northern sense of humor is a bit more sarcastic or what have you. So I thought it could have had a bearing on the joke side of thing, on the writing side, potentially.
But then I never lost that, so I've always
you took it with you.
Sarcastic, pain in the ass. Anyway, so I think it is. But maybe, I mean, it's very different in the pubs here than it is going out in central London.
You can get a seat.
And you get a lovely seat. And
but do you miss it? I don't know. We discussed here a few times, like moving out of London, and for me, it's like, I don't know. I'm really a city person, but I think I would miss quite a lot, like the kind of museums and the artistic things, the city can offer you. You don't miss that as much, or?
But it's still there. Like for example, London is only a train ride away. Other cities are also a train ride away. I think it's not as easy as jumping on a bus.
But you can still plan it.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels more of an event as well. Like we're visiting London in a couple of weeks and it feels like, oh, we're going to London special.
Yeah.
It feels quite nice.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's a good point.
But
because for me,
I do miss those things though, like being able to be around those areas and
spontaneity.
Having it there like just as an everyday thing was really nice. I mean, I lived in London for 20 years. I moved down for college, so it was like 98 I think I moved to study, and then I left what was it, 5 years ago. So it was like a big chunk of my life I was there. And I thought I would miss it more, but I think you just settle into the new situation. And it did coincide with having children very young. We moved up just before we had our second. And I think if we were in London, our life just would have been different anyway. So we may as well just change everything.
It's chapters, isn't it? It's like having chapters of your life. Like the London chapter was, like say 20s to mid to late 30s. And then your next chapter of like kids is, you want more space and what have you. It's just the pages turning of a book.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it felt like that to us because we'd had both of our children and we moved house twice in like the space of 2 years. So we just, it was like a real turn of the page of everything. And I think once everything settled down, there was such a relief of, we got through that. And now we will settle into what this is going to become. We moved up and we rented for 6 months as well, just to see how it would be and if we liked it. We didn't really have a plan B, but we had a temporary residence just in case to formulate a plan B afterwards. But it's worked out and it's lovely. There we are.
So you should move up north there, Thiago. You know,
Yeah.
cookies and gravy studio.
I just doing 20 years now. This is my 20th year in London, so maybe I just follow.
20 years, wow. Does it feel like 20 years to you?
That doesn't. Yeah, it's weird. It doesn't feel 20 years. I feel like I have 22, so it's just like I'm born and moved here.
True.
One question for you two, Andy. You were talking before. You're talking about like moving and working remotely before the COVID time. James as well has been working remotely. A quick question for you two. I talked to a lot of the other studio owners, and everyone trying to get everyone back in the studios. How do you guys feel about like the remote work? I think we always gonna have is a massive change, on the mentality and how we work nowadays. But I think as the studio owners and quite a lot of few creative people I talk as well miss the connection to have other people around, and I can see like a lot of the studio owners wanted to get everyone back in the studio. Everyone's going to keep flexible, with the days, because nowadays you can't just force people to come back anymore. But it is a thing people trying to bring back. What do you guys feel that does affect your work much? You guys being remote, not being around people, seeing clients and things like that.
I mean, I've been doing it for so long that it is just the way that I'm set up. So the not being in a studio, really my life didn't change very much in the pandemic. It was just I couldn't go and meet people locally.
It just wasn't your decision anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that was a relief. But I think as far as people coming back, it's it depends on how the people feel about it, I guess. Because if you're forcing people who don't want to come back, they're just going to feel anxious in the room.
Yeah.
Not produce good work just through not feeling good in themselves. But then other people really need that, like you say, the connection. I mean, I was sort of quite flippant when I said I didn't really get much done when I went into the office, when I would go in once or twice a week. Actually, what I did get from having conversations stuff was little sparks of ideas, or kind of ironing out niggles that I'd had with certain creative bits and pieces, or even just like a conversation about timeline and budget or things like that with the producer, which would be really useful. So stuff like that can be really handy and can kind of be a shorthand if you're in the office with people. So yeah, it's just kind of making it available for everybody who wants it, which I think as time goes on, more and more people will feel comfortable and want to be there and get back into that. But I really like the fact that we're living this halfway house between being in the office and being at home. I think it's a healthy way to work, and also it's cheaper to not travel.
Yeah, it's true.
I think the benefit of also not so much for being North Yorkshire, but if you move out of London but relatively nearby, you can still get a train in and meet people with relative ease. Like maybe you do a couple of days per month and get that camaraderie and get the ideas bounced around. So I think that's the useful part, isn't it? Like, you have a conversation and it could be about something completely irrelevant, like, oh, those are nice color shoes, but it'll, like you're saying, it'll spark something somewhere and that might lead to an idea. It might be completely unrelated.
Yeah.
But
also being in the room just means that people are aware of you. It's like just,
here,
see,
and here.
Yeah, essentially, if people see you and then a project comes in, they're like, oh, well, Andy, come and look at this. And you're like, oh, cool. I'm in the room. I may
That's
not
true.
have opportunity before.
But I don't know. I feel like post-COVID, there's no going back how it used to be. There's going to be like a new normal.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we will ever get back.
I think it's a massive
mix.
I think it's a good thing because you can hire people from no matter where they are in the world. And you know, you can hire you based on talent as opposed to geographical location, which is quite nice. Like similar to Andy before we moved, because Andy actually lives down the road from me and what have you, and we kind of moved up at a similar time, which is kind of ironic.
Coincidentally.
Yeah. It took me about 1.5 years to turn around my work to make it all remote, and there was quite a lot of pushback from a lot of companies. But now it's like, yeah, it's fine. So I think if you have that, and that was with an established relationship as well, where, you know, I know these people trust me, otherwise they wouldn't hire me. They weren't like new clients or anything. So that was kind of interesting. Whereas I think now, post COVID, it's much easier to do, because I think people are used to it now.
Yeah, I think everyone got used now. I think it's still a lot about the trust, you know. So nowadays, I think studios and clients is risking a lot more. In the past, you know, like if you work with someone and suddenly, like in your case or both of you, you move up north, but you don't have the clients, you know, the client knows you, you know. But as soon as you are a studio and you never work with that person and you need to risk.
You should do like down payments for new freelancers, where they give you say like 2 days worth of rate, and then obviously they'll get that back if they do a good job plus the day rate anyway. But then the risk is mitigated because you have the mutual interest.
Yeah.
Is that too capitalistic and shitty?
Yeah, it sounds awful. Yeah.
And that's why I don't run a business.
And talk about that. I saw a discussion in another forum. It's about clients with all this, you know, like everything how it's going around the world now. Clients start asking freelance to bring the day rate down. Right. So this is turning to be quite a new thing. It start happening a lot because you know, like running the studio, you can see clients coming every time with less budget. That has been happens, you know, the 20+ years I'm in the industry. The budget used to be here and is here now, and the day rate's going here to here. So, and the good thing you said, James, about work with remote, you can have people anywhere in the world. But that when you get the like fucking, you know, like LA price $700,000-$900,000 a day. How do you pay in UK? You know, where your clients pay like shit money, you know. But you
look towards India.
Yeah, it's true. But it's a big thing. I saw quite few people comment about a lot. Clients who start asking freelancers to bring their rate down.
I think this is a day rate conundrum. Like I'm quite lucky that we work quite internationally, not just UK but Europe and wherever. And I think it's a good thing to tailor your day rate to wherever the client are in some ways, and then you can assess if you can take it on or not. Because if you're just working on an LA day rate or whatever, you're going to price yourself out of the market to a lot of places.
Yeah.
And you're gambling on someone from LA hiring you. I mean, if you're a popular freelancer, then sure, you can do that. That's fine. But I think you tailor it to wherever the client is.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing, because even like we work with a lot of remote freelance, and suddenly we start getting freelance and live in the middle, nowhere in the middle of just example like Brazil, and suddenly the person want to charge us US price, you know, like basically the day rate. He lives the fucking whole week, you know, almost a whole month with 1 day rate.
But so, it depends on their work too. Like if they're really good quality and have a track record, then they are worth that money, because sometimes, you know, buy cheap, buy twice. I think that's part of the equation.
I mean, I always find I work with various animators on like the bigger projects, and you can tell instantly like who are the just good hardworking ones and aren't quite so good, and you have to keep, you know, pursuing to get the things done, and the ones that are good, just you work with them again and again. They'll
always be employed.
Yeah, I just find it's a false economy for the individual to either pretend they're at a level that they're not, or to charge more than the general amount is for their level. I mean, it's hard to find out because everyone's so secretive with daily rates generally.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because people are like, it's great to have a more transparent industry, but then the offset of that is people who don't necessarily have the talent or ability or reputation. They want to charge the same as people up here, and that's quite an issue.
But then they'll be bouncing around different companies, and then everyone will realise that they're not.
But the problem is they'll burn bridges, and they won't have longevity. And then
but the
they're
point is no one ever builds as many bridges we have in the world to burn. Especially global wise. If you think the amount of bridge you're gonna burn, man, you're gonna work 20 years on the industry without work burning bridges. That's the problem now. Yeah. I even joke once with the other studio owners, and I said we need to have a blacklist. It's just like no one hire this. I already hired, waste money, but people say we can't do that. But it is true. It's like what Andy said. Like when you find the good people, you normally tend to keep and work with them again. Yeah. But
anyway, I've not worked for a while.
Yeah, neither have I.
But it is a good, you need to try, and of course cost money and time as well. It's hard to find, and like James saying, it's good everyone knows the day rate, but in the same time, it's you get people just starting the career think, oh, all right, I'm gonna charge the same day rate, but doesn't have the experience, doesn't deliver the same work, doesn't work as fast, so it's quite hard.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of decentralizing from London, though, and like I think one of the things over the course of the next couple of years, like from moving up north and the bigger cities like Manchester and Leeds, there's quite a lot of like nice studios coming out of here, like nice creative studios with good solid work, which I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago was difficult to find. It's not to say they weren't there, they were just difficult to find, whereas now there's quite a few of them cropping out, which is quite nice.
Yeah, and I think more and more will happen as people are trying to find space and finding that they can work remotely and work with clients remotely as well is like a big thing, not having to go in for meetings. I think people like the fact that they don't have to keep traveling around London to different meetings, so it means that they can do a meeting remotely and then get on with what they need.
I remember years ago, the Wes Anderson film, Fantastic Mr. Fox. Amazing film, lovely animation, but he directed most of that remotely.
I think he sent a lot of phone messages,
and that was a fucking nightmare, no?
Yeah, but the film turned out great. And that's the bottom line.
I'm not gonna put names here, but we had like a See No Evil Live where we saw how that turned out, and
but the film is great.
Crazy. The film is great, but the way he directed
is amazing.
Didn't make any sense.
You don't have to know how it was made or how many children died. It's fine.
Yeah, that was. But it is funny. I think we're getting better and better working remotely, but it's still, I think, still a long way to go,
So in terms of like influences, Andy, like what are your kind of like influences on your work? Like who got you into animation? Who like, well, damn, I want to do that. That's my career path.
I mean, I don't think I ever stopped watching cartoons. Like when other people did, like I would still be watching
cartoons for life.
Exactly.
Do you force your kids watch a specific type of cartoons?
Yeah.
Like
no, Clockwork Orange.
I used to put my daughter to watch the ones I like all the time.
I mean, I will put them on, but it's just such a losing battle. They have full control of the remote control when they're watching the telly now. So.
You don't tie them up on the chair and force them to watch.
I mean, I have tried, but they are wily and they will wriggle out of that stuff. I mean, for me, it was. Seeing Wallace and Gromit was mind blowing.
Oh, yeah. Such a great,
When I grew up, stuff like the clangers. When I was really little, Button Moon.
That's also audio design as well, with the clangers and Button Moon, like woo woo.
Exactly, like all the BBC sci-fi workshop stuff is really cool. Like Banana Man, I really loved. I really loved all the very British stuff that had like that kind of wonky sensibility, Pigeon Street, stuff like
Pigeon
that.
Street. I mean, Banana Man is peak in terms of like weird British superhero animation. You know, fuck your Marvel, man. Bring back Banana Man. Big screen Banana Man. Yo, that would be good.
I mean, my son isn't called Eric for no
I mean,
reason.
I have noticed the abundance of bananas in your house and his blue costume.
Yeah. We're all dressed as bananas 24/7. But yeah, that kind of thing. And then like as I got older, like when I saw Akira, that was another mind-blowing thing. Like the first Toy Story was unbelievable. Like for animation, that kind of stuff was the things that I really loved. But then other stuff was, I really love comedy. And Spaced was like a defining sitcom, good. The way it was shot and the way it was edited and all the references was like just
with Space, it's kind of like a junction of like all your influences, you know, be it, you know, anime and what have you, or you know, films. Space was that junction. It had so many references.
Yeah, computer games and just like late 90s music.
It was all Warp Records, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. There was also in the Robot Wars episode, there were members of the Blue Tones in the chest out shouting hordes of people. So there's all like little bits and pieces like that.
I love Tyres when he tries to cross the road and just hears the beeping of the traffic lights. So it's like beep beep, and he just gets into his like techno mood.
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah, so is that, and I really loved Father Ted, even though Graham Linehan's gone mental. But that was like a big cartoon as a sitcom. They were trying to do The Simpsons as an Irish live action thing with priests.
So good.
So all of that fed into my work. Because I like, as much as I love animation, I think if all you're doing is looking at other cartoons, especially like contemporary stuff, you'll just reproduce what other people are doing. And like I mean, my ultimate goal, and I think it's a lot of people's ultimate goal, is like to have a TV series that I have full ownership of, and I've done various development things for that kind of stuff. And that comes from a love of TV and a love of comedy TV. Like my favorite show by far at the moment, even though like I love Succession and I just watched The Last of Us, the first episode. I've loved the game. Like, all these prestige things are great, but Taskmaster is just the best thing on television.
It is good.
Pure joy, and it's silliness and people being fun and funny and sort of relaxed as it goes along, and it has a playfulness which is something that I've always tried to feed into my work, and I think I take influence from other things that have a playful sensibility.
So you have like a video game influence as well, because obviously Joel influenced your fashion tonight.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've come in theme of The Last of Us. Well, I got into computer games only recently when we had our first kids, and my wife was going to bed at 8 o'clock and feeding her. I was watching telly and falling asleep, so I needed something a bit more interactive. So I bought a PlayStation and started games and got slightly obsessed for a few years. But also, like, the narratives are completely different from when I was playing my Nintendo Entertainment System. It was just a game, but now it's a fully like immersive world, and there's like loads of narrative devices that are unique to games that I think is really interesting as well.
It's interesting how we've gone from like say 25 years ago, if you wanted like a really cinematic experience, you'd play like a VHS game like Atmosphere, whereas now it's a fully interactive proper film massive production values like The Last of Us, Last of Us Part 2 and what have you. And you know, it's crazy, and the writing is legit amazing.
Mm.
And you know, stuff like like God of War as well.
It's
just got great writing.
Shot, the whole thing, and it's like a technical marvel, but also really helps keep you in the story. The whole of last year I was playing Elden Ring just because it's a big game and I don't have tons of time anymore. But
I've not played that yet.
It's really hard, but the storytelling is really interesting because it's so loose, and you can't just play the game and work out what you're doing. You have to like explore like YouTube and gaming sites just to work out what the hell is going on, because there's like hints of story, but it's not in any way fed to you. And I think as a way of telling narrative, it's really interesting, and there's something in that you could, and I think it is used in animation, especially in shorts. You can tell a narrative in quite an abstract, loose way. There's actually today one of the BAFTA nominated short animations is a Strange Beast film called Anthony's Waiting, by Hannah Jacobs. She directed it, and it's a really beautiful film. It's online on Vimeo. You can watch it, and I won't really tell you about it, but the way it's told is in quite a loose way, and lots of metaphor and symbolism to tell quite an emotional story. And I think that's something that animation is really good at, not being straightforward. And to be honest, it's something that I'm not very good at. I am quite I try to be abstract, and it just comes out as, you know, a gag or like a skit. But I really admire that stuff, and trying to take influence from ways of telling stories. The way I've structured films, recently I did a series of animations called Box Reviews. It's a character who is a YouTuber and he reviews boxes. And he talks like this, and he's like, "Hey guys, how's it going? We've got a really nice box here."
Oh, yeah, it's like go.
So there's a question on the YouTube channel saying how did Andy come up with their box reviews? But I feel we're probably about to delve into that.
Yeah, well, it's like with that and my Mr. Director film, it was like trying to, how can I frame like something that's entertaining, but not in just a straight narrative story where you're watching something play out. And with the box reviews, YouTubers are doing all sorts of things, like they're unboxing toys and stuff like that. And I just thought, well, what would be the most boring thing to do? It wouldn't be the unboxing, it'd just be like the actual box itself. And also I can make little boxes quite easily, and they are then in the scale of the character. I don't know where he is. Oh, there he is. So he's like that big, and then I've made like tons of little boxes for him. But I wanted something that I could do a series of them, slightly taking the piss out of YouTubers, but in like a loving way. Also wanted to do like a silly voice, but I wanted him to be quite a vulnerable character. Like, he's really into his boxes. It's like obsession with things. Like I love making music, and like I'm obsessed with every aspect of that. And I'll look at geeky videos about arpeggios or, you know, harmonies and stuff like that. He's really into boxes, and takes like a simple like square box and just loves the symmetrical nature of it, and like the obsession of it. And it can only be him who likes it. But then if he puts that on YouTube, there's probably other box fans who are going to get into it.
You'll always find an audience.
Yeah. So I just liked all of it. It was a silly idea, and like a, you know, slight satire on YouTube culture. Look at us three guys talking about like motion graphics animation is very niche, but yet people are asking questions about it. There's a lot of people out there who like a very niche thing.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I think what we do is, whether people realize it or not, is everywhere.
That's true.
Especially in the advent of everything is now a screen. Newspaper,
Yeah.
old hat, iPad.
Yeah.
Everything is a screen now. So
I
it's going to
think
get more prevalent.
It's definitely a mix of that. Like, there's so many outlets that they need to fill with content, and also the availability of being able to do it. Like, it's not all great quality, but
I can attest to that.
there is more of it. Yeah, as can I.
Yeah, it's not. I think it's just going to increase more and more, because it's like James saying, it's everywhere. We used to have billboards. They all like digital billboards. Like you go like on the tube now. It's so like it used to be just a poster there. It's always screens on the escalator. Like all icons and everything on the phone. It's endless. The amount.
It's only a matter of time before we get like e-ink bullets just as a final fuck you.
It's true.
I mean, the downside of that is formatting of everything, where you have to do everything.
Yeah. Man, like when HD was introduced and also 4K, it's like, oh, maybe they'll simplify things to just that resolution and that spec. But no, now we've got fucking portrait phones and all that shit to deal with. Yeah. Can you make it portrait but also landscape and fit everything?
And one by one as well.
Yeah. I mean, I blame the line because they did a portrait animation years and years ago, so I assume it's their fault.
It has to be. I think we should send like a horse head to them.
Yeah. It's a good film as well, which is annoying.
So cool, guys. We're getting into 1 hour show. I think let's crack like 2 last questions for end as well, and so we can carry on. So anything you want to ask, James?
I've got a question, but I'm going to save it to the last one because it's the classic.
Okay. So Andy, let me ask you one question. We normally like to ask people is, if you see yourself, you could give advice to yourself. If you start in the career right now, things you could do different, or things would help you to be where you are nowadays, or simplify your path. What you would give as advice to anyone starting nowadays?
I mean, I think to be more specific on advice that I would give myself would be to do a short film like as quickly as possible, and like spend like a year between doing your other things, just chipping away at doing that. I always felt like about 5 years behind other people, like people who went to the Royal College or the National Film School to do a short film. I couldn't afford to do that. I had to get out and get a job. It just wasn't available to me. But something I could have done earlier would to start thinking about the kind of work that I want to make, and just be trusting in my own sensibilities of that, and get that out into the world, because I think that really helped me work out what I was doing and help other people see the kind of thing that I wanted to do, and if it resonated with them. I think with anybody, I've always thought it's, if you have the opportunity to make something, like if at all you're passionate about it and you want to, the only way to make something is to make something. So just like try and find the time, especially when you're in your early 20s, because you got don't wait until you're an old man to start.
It's a nice you comment there, because of course I started my career in Brazil, and when I moved here, for me, it was quite a massive, I think it's like European thing, but was quite a surprise, like people, when they do the short film and really take that time. And in Brazil, it's like you said, you don't even finish uni, you're already working the same time. I started the uni, and 6 months later, I was doing internship already and doing partial with the the university. And I think this is something for me was like, wow, you know, it's really nice because I think it's the time you discover yourself and you test with things and you try things. And I never had that time in the beginning as well. And you commenting there. And for me was like, wow, you know, it's people taking the time to learn, to understand as well, you know, because you're putting yourself, you're showing the direction you want to go and show a little bit of your style, what you want to, you know, as an artist as well.
Well, it's figuring out what your style is as well.
Yeah.
Developing it.
And I think as well, it can be quite daunting to dive into a big project. You like script a big film and start, you know, storyboarding, boredom, all of that to do like a whole chunk of something. I mean, the first things that I made were built up from smaller things that became a film. So I did little loops of stuff that then I put together, and then I put audio together, and then I wrote a song for one of the characters to sing, and that became like a little 2-minute animation that I put out. And that was the first thing I did. It was like incremental bits to get to something. With the planets, that started out as an illustration project where I was just doing a character in my sketchbook. But then at the end of the first month, I did an animation, and then that fed into the rest of the year when I did one every month that then I put all together at the end of the year, and it kind of evolved into something. So I think if people are like just daunted by the scale of even doing a 1-minute thing, and do something achievable, but big stuff, and then that will inevitably lead to good things, whether it's just personally or professionally. I think it's always worth getting those things out if you're passionate and want to do them.
Yeah, nice.
So, final
Come
question.
on, James, what is your question?
If your animation studio was on Tinder, how would you describe yourself?
Oh man, I've never had to use dating apps. Do I need to be pithy?
Well, you can say whatever you want. Maybe it's a getting work app, so it's a dating app but for your studio.
My studio,
to attract clients. Let's say that.
Yeah. I mean, I would describe it as like, I mean, if I'm being serious, like playful, funny and musical, but with added sex appeal through maturity and experience.
That's good. That's a good way to finish the show.
Yeah.
Andy, first, man, thanks so much to be on the show. It was quite a good pleasure, and it's nice to see you again. It's been quite a while.
Yeah, it's been fun. Well, whenever you visit James, I'm just around the corner. So
next time we need to plan James.
Yeah,
we're gonna crash James' house now.
I've got some ideas for you.
Okay.
Can't mention them here though.
All right.
Don't want to get banned.
We're talking later about that. So thank you so much. Just a couple of things before we finish. So way back now, 2023. Next
2021.
No, fuck, it's 23. Don't confuse me.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking Cafe 2001.
Yeah.
My bad.
Don't listen to James. So we're back on Cafe 2001 on the 31st of January with Cub Studio. We're going to announce tomorrow on the social media. So it's the live show we do in London. That's only for people in London. The YouTube carry on every month. And we're going to announce after in the beginning of February. Again, thank you everyone to support us. Andy, thanks so much for your time, man. It's nice to see you and see the great work. And thanks so much, guys.
It's been fun.
Take care.
Cheers. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cool. So the stream is off. So we can talk.